Hello guys, welcome to Easy Learning, and in this lesson we are going to discuss about chemical compounds. But for this lesson our main focus will be on binary compounds. So let us look at the definition of a compound. A compound is formed from the chemical. A compound is formed from the chemical combination of two or more elements. A compound is formed from the chemical combination of two or more elements. So meaning that we cannot form compound physically. If we want to combine two or more substances physically, that one will be formation of mixtures. Mixtures will combine two or more substances physically. But for compounds, we form them chemically. And I've said that our main focus in this tutorial will be on binary compounds. So let me define a binary compound. A binary compound is simply a compound that consists or that is formed from basically two elements. So let's see how you can form binary compounds. I have aluminium, and I have, let's say, oxygen. I have aluminium and oxygen. So how do I form a binary compound from these two elements? If you want to form a compound, know the valency of each of the elements. So you have to know the valency of aluminium, and the valency is 3. So this is the symbol for aluminium. Its valency is 3. Oxygen, valency of oxygen is 2. I'm not explaining how I got the 3 and 2 because I've already done that in lesson 3 on the structure of an atom. So please, if you have not watched that video, go back and watch it. So aluminium has a valency of 3, oxygen has a valency of 2. So how do you form a binary compound from these two elements? Just exchange the valencies. Give the valency of oxygen to aluminium and give the valency of aluminium to oxygen. So you get Al2O3. Al2O3. So this is called aluminium oxide. In this tutorial, we are not going to learn how to name compounds, but we are just going to learn how to form compounds. So the naming of compounds will be in another lesson. So this is aluminium oxide. Let us consider other examples. Let's say zinc. I have zinc and chlorine. Zinc has a valency of 2 and chlorine has a valency of 1. So give the valency of chlorine to zinc and give that of zinc to chlorine. So you get zinc Zn1Cl2. But for the one you are not going to write it, so it will be like this. Zinc chloride. So this is how you can chemically form a binary compound from zinc and chlorine. What about this one? What about zinc and oxygen? Zinc has a valency of 2. Oxygen also has a valency of 2. So give that of oxygen to zinc and that of zinc to oxygen. So you get Zn2O2. These two, they are all valency. The 2 here is a valency. This 2 here is also a valency. So they can cancel. 2 will cancel 2. So you get ZnO. Zinc oxide. So this is the compound that you can form from zinc and oxygen. Sometimes you have a radical. So let's see what a radical is. Let me write an example of a radical. SO for 2-. This is an example of a radical. A radical is an ion. From the charge that you are seeing over, you can see that this is an ion. A radical is an ion. But this time, it involves more than one atom. You can see that we have two atoms here, 1, 2. So a radical is simply a radical. You can also call a radical a polyradical or polyatomic ion. Polyatomic ion. So what is a radical or a polyatomic ion? It is a group of atoms. It is a group of atoms that can exist as a charge unit. As a charge unit. So this is a radical. Sometimes a compound may be formed from a metal and a radical. So let's see how that is done. You have an element like potassium, and you have tetroxomanganate ion, MnO4 minus. As I've said, in this tutorial, I'm not going to teach you how to name compounds. That one will be in another tutorial. So this is called tetroxomanganate ion. How can you determine the valency from this radical? Anytime that you have a radical has a charge. So just look at the charge of the radical. This manganate ion has a charge of -1. You can see, because it is -1, the 1 is not written. So this manganate ion has a charge of -1. But for valency, we don't consider charges. So if you want to know the valency of tetroxomanganate ion, just ignore the negative charge. Just ignore the negative. So the valency for this radical is 1. The valency for this radical is 1. And the valency of potassium is also 1. So you give the valency of tetroxomanganate ion to potassium, and you give that of potassium to tetroxomanganate ion. So you are going to get K1 MnO4 1. I'm going to get something like this. But because it is 1, you just ignore the 1. And you get KMnO4. Potassium tetroxomanganate 7. That is the name. You will get to know as you follow us in another tutorial. So when you write a compound like this, you will not bring the charge. You have to ignore the charge over here. So you will not bring the charge. So this is potassium tetroxomanganate 7, manganate 7. Let's consider zinc and sulfate ion. This ion, its common name is called the sulfate ion. So sulfate ion has a charge of -2. To know the valency, just ignore the charge. Just ignore the negative. So the valency of sulfate ion is 2. And when you want to form a compound with it, you ignore the negative. You ignore the charge on it. So just write SO4. Ignore the charge. And you have zinc. Zinc has a valency of 2. So give the valency of SO4 to zinc and give that of zinc to SO4. We are going to get zinc 2, SO4 2. The valency of zinc, which is 2, has been given to SO4, which is 2. Because SO4 is one compound. SO4 is one compound. Put it in the bracket and put the 2 here outside, so that these 2 will affect all the elements here. If you don't write it this way, it will be wrong. You have to write it this way so that these 2 will affect whatever is in the bracket, because that is what it means. So these 2 will cancel these 2. Then you get ZnSO4. ZnSO4. Let us consider our last example, and we bring this lesson to an end. Example like, let's say you have aluminium You have aluminium. And you have nitrate ion. NO3 minus is called nitrate ion. That's the common name, nitrate ion. So nitrate ion has a charge of -1. Its valency will be 1. Just ignore the charge. Aluminium has a valency of 3. So exchange the valency. Exchange the valency. So aluminium, you give this one to aluminium. This one, it is not a single atom, or it is not a single element. It is a polyatom. We are dealing with 2 atoms here. So put the polyatom or put NO3 inside the bracket, so that when you write this valency here, which is 3, it will affect everything. If you don't write it this way, it will be wrong. This valency of 3 is affecting everything here. So you have to put NO3 in a bracket, so that when you write the 3 here, the 3 is affecting whatever is inside the bracket. If not, it will be wrong. So because it is 1 here, you will ignore and you get AlNO3 bracket 3. So this is what you are getting. This is how a binary compound is formed. So in another tutorial, I'll teach you how to name compounds. But for now, I'll bring our lesson to a close. So please don't forget to like this video. We also need your comments, so comment in the comment section, and also don't forget to share. Thank you.